Welcome to Okon Bros. This is Eric.
And I'm Michael. And if you want to learn about the secrets of the universe, the law of attraction, mysticism, brohood, gambling, movies, pop culture, archangels, magic, good food, business, health, family, and mediumship, smash that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, press the noti icon, and spread this video around like peanut butter and jelly.
I love it. So today we have on Richard Knight. Richard is a world-renowned psychic, medium, healer, and tarot master. You can visit richard-knight.co.uk, and that's Knight with a K, for more information on booking a session or joining one of his 6-week masterclasses. Thank you for coming on, Richard.
You're more than welcome. Lovely to be here. Hi. First question: what is peanut butter and jelly? We don't have that here.
You know, I was gonna do like it's like crumpets, right? Like you guys do like
yeah, you don't put peanut butter and jelly. Just okay.
Are you serious right now? That's like not a thing.
Peanut butter and jelly is like an American staple. It's like you like growing up. You have, if you're not allergic to peanuts, you have peanut butter and jelly on bread, so you spread it around. And
it's not made over the side of the pond. Not in any great.
Oh my god! Well, that's good to know, Eric. So when we go to London, we're not gonna be able to eat peanut butter and jelly there.
I know.
So what do you spread on like on an English muffin? Like, I should have said a butter on an English muffin.
Butter or jam. Yeah.
Jam on an English. Spread this video around like.
For most people in the UK, peanut butter and jam is like doesn't compute.
Oh my god,
that is like all American.
I gotta tell you, if they even sell peanut butter, I'm assuming they would sell peanut.
Oh yeah,
butter.
yeah, we've got peanut. Yeah,
try it. Okay, just get a Thomas English muffin and do peanut butter and jelly. There's no going back.
Okay, I'm going to do it.
And Eric, if you would have asked me how this conversation, I was like, the tarot, psychic mediumship, we're talking about peanut butter and jelly here.
Get used to it. My mind doesn't do linear.
Same.
Yeah, well, this goes into kind of my first question / statement. You gave me a reading, and it was so unusual in the best way possible, because how you did tarot, then mediumship, tarot, and mediumship, and you went back and forth. How did you come up with that style? Yeah, we'll start there.
Out of necessity, really, because I've been reading both as a tarot reader and as medium for almost my entire life. And even when I used to do it separately, so people could either book tarot sessions with me or mediumship sessions. But unfortunately, the folks upstairs who wanted to come through didn't care if I was reading the cards or not; they were going to come through. So I kind of had to find a way of establishing ground rules. So, because occasionally people would come in for a card reading, then somebody from Spirit would link and we do a completely different reading from what they booked for, which usually was fine. But it kind of grated for me because that's not what I was trying to do for that person. So I had to kind of find that balance of almost like it's tarot, and when I know somebody's coming through, I'm having a conversation going, right, hang on, you'll get your moment. And there's usually a point where I can kind of break, let them come through it. And the general rule is once they're through, they're through. They will talk about whatever they want to talk about. And, I'm not kind of going, stop, I need to go back to the cards. I'll let them flow. And, I'll often just use the phrase, when they're ready to take a breath, which I know is a strange phrase, but it's the only way I can describe it. They kind of pause, then I can go back into the cards.
It took me a minute to catch on. Because I came in not knowing what to expect, and when you were switching back and forth, it was a great experience to do that.
It's interesting. It actually is interesting for me because I don't know who's going to come through, and I don't know whether I'm going to get 2 minutes into the reading before somebody's going to break their way in from Spirit, or whether I'm going to get further into it. I said at the beginning, this could be 2 minutes or 20 minutes into this. I don't know until we start. And it is a little bit kind of like patting your head and rubbing your stomach at times. But actually, if I'm in flow, what they're saying can sometimes add another dimension to what I'm looking at in the cards, and kind of vice versa. Often, if somebody's coming through and it's a very emotional situation they're talking about within the family, I'm also looking at on tarot completely objectively without emotion, so I can almost fill in the two things if they're working well. We'll kind of connect together really well.
Is tarot tarot the future and Spirit is kind of the past, or does it intertwines?
Tarot, the traditional way of looking at tarot is kind of past, present, future. It's a way of looking at somebody's past, present, future. Mm-hmm. That's kind of changing. I mean, it will do all that, but at least I hope it's changing because it's what I've been teaching for the last 10 years. But it's also an extremely powerful coaching tool. So it's a tool of transformation. If I've got a client who is looking at a situation in their life that they're stuck, the tarot will give them different perspectives on that situation, perhaps different ways of looking at a situation they've never considered before. So tarot's kind of developed or developing past, the fortune teller image. Mediumship, I don't rely on spirit coming through and telling me the future. I mean, they're really good at it, and it's happened thousands of times probably where they've come through and done that. The only reason I'm always slightly careful about it, though, is because if I'm reading for a family member, they are going to come through and talk about that family member and that family member's future. And it's unlikely your grandmother's going to come through and tell you you're going to have a rubbish year. The dog's going to get hit by a car next week. They just wouldn't. Why would they do it? So I'm always kind of, I have to kind of go, okay, there's an emotional side to the family coming through. So they're going to be, they're maybe not as objective about somebody's future as the cards. Cards have no emotional connection to the person that's having the reading.
So here's a question. Is the future pre-written? Or is there free will? Or is the free will what your future is always going to be?
It's a combination of the two. I think there's fixed points in our life, how we get from one fixed point to the next fixed point. And that can be 20 years between fixed points, but it's kind of, we make those decisions, we find that route. I think there are certain fixed points. Certainly when I'm reading cards, the time frame sometimes between those fixed points might slip a little bit there, but they're going to get there. The free will question is, you could often get, not so much nowadays, but back in the day, I used to get clients who were really nervous about tarot cards, and you're not going to tell me anything bad, are you?
Right.
Really, that question is literally, you're not going to tell me if I'm going to die next week, are you? That's really what they mean. And if, touch wood, this has never happened, but if I turn over somebody's cards and they were getting hit by a number 27 bus 2 weeks next Tuesday, they just wouldn't have to go out of the house that day, and they would change the whole course of things. I mean, very rarely going to get it as black and white as that, but
But has that happened? Has that happened? Right? Like, has that
There's been situations where somebody's been heading towards something.
Really?
Because the cards are kind of gone. Oh, actually, almost. It would happen. I'm not going to say in every reading, but a lot of a large proportion of readings where somebody's on a course of action and the cards are kind of going. Maybe think about doing that way, and it's changed direction. It's to me. It's really what the cards are there for. It is a sense of guidance, a sense of it's like a coaching tool, a life coaching tool nowadays, used in its proper way. It's a tool for transformation. So if somebody is stuck or heading in the wrong direction, the cards will kind of flag that up and go, maybe have a look at it, think about it going this way instead.
So is tarot interpretive, or is it black and white?
No, it is interpretive. I mean, I always describe tarot is an art. If you filled a room full of artists and told them to all paint a picture of a vase of flowers, they're all going to be completely different. So tarot is interpretive, absolutely. I mean, the basic truths should be there. You shouldn't get 6 tarot readers saying completely opposite things. There should be a basic area in the middle, but how they describe it and how they're going to get to that information will differ from tarot reader to tarot reader. And the fact is, I mean, the tarot, in my opinion, has been kind of, I was going to say disguised, maybe not the right word, but there's been so much mysticism and mumbo jumbo, and I'm trying not to swear here, but so much crap that's been written about.
You can curse. You can curse on the show.
Good. Because we're only 10 minutes into it. That's good for me. But there has been. I mean, you're going back 100 years. I mean, tarot's been distorted so much. It's almost become, for somebody picking up a deck of tarot cards and going to the books, it's almost been impossible to learn because it's been so. Yeah, there's been so much chucked at it, so many different people's points of view, so much mysticism.
I've gotten tarot readings in like hotel psychics, right? Yeah. Like where like local hotels have like these psychics and they're pulling the cards, and it's so generic, right? Yeah. It's like there's a change in your career coming up, and there's some creative side to you that you're flourishing, but then I had a reading with you, and you were not generic at all.
No.
You were so specific that was going on with stuff.
Yeah.
So precise with stuff that was happening in my life. And I found you on Facebook. You know, I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw Masterclass with Richard Knight. I'm like, you look like a professional. Like, you didn't look like some, like, you know, I don't want to say like 2-bit psychic, like a hotel psychic.
Yeah.
Like, you look like you knew what you were doing. And we gave it a shot. And you gave me one of the most insane readings of my life. You gave me hope. You gave me a career path that, like, I knew was going to happen, but you kind of solidified it. How long have you been doing this for? I mean, you said you've been doing this your whole life.
I was given my first deck of tarot cards when I was 4. I didn't know what they were there, but I mean, I was
20 years ago. So about 20 years ago.
Bless you. Double it and add a bit. Yeah, my first deck of tarot. I've still got them. I collect tarot decks. When I was 4, I had no idea.
Really?
I was a very weird child, and I kind of knew stuff about people that I shouldn't have known. It sort of, you know, it just was things coming in, and there's no filter at that age. It was like,
right.
How did he know that? Why didn't? Yeah, etc. So I guess somebody thought it would be a funny idea, give the weird child a deck of tarot cards at the age of 4. They were just pretty colorful pictures.
Right.
I only knew what they were for, strangely, because of a James Bond film when I was 7, Live and Let Die, where they used tarot cards. I went, oh, is that what they're for then? So what they were doing there. And that's, so, yeah, pretty much started to read tarot cards when I was 7.
Wow.
And, yeah, my route through this has not been the normal route that I guess most people that you will run into, the new age.
Were you ever trained to read tarot, or you were just kind of found your own way?
A bit at the beginning by my grandmother, who was clairvoyant up in Scotland.
Wow.
Then I trained myself, but I kind of threw myself in the deep end. At that point, I was living in a, be careful how I phrase this, not a great area of England, very industrial, very down to earth, very cool steel mines, coal mines. Yeah. So at the age of 15, I'd go into pubs with a deck of tarot cards, sit there, put the cards in front of me to make some money. Wow. And you kind of got to be good, or you're going to end up in the pavement on your backside very quickly. So, you know, when I talk to my students, I kind of go, it's a great way of learning, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Right.
But you learn to be able to read the cards accurately very quickly. You know, within a minute, if you're not connected to the person you're trying to read, they would just walk away. And so it was a great way of doing it. I guess the closest I've had to have a teacher or a mentor was a gentleman who lived in Paris, who was very much an underground tarot reader, gentleman called Keppel, who was like almost a mythical figure. He would appear at about midnight in kind of Montmartre areas of Paris.
Wow.
He looked like a hermit from a tarot deck. He had a limp and was carrying a big stick like that. And
he looked like the hermit. He looked like the hermit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, and he'd just appear, and no one knew which bar he was going to be in. He'd just find a bar, sit there, and there'd be a queue of 20, 30 people just waiting.
Really?
And they it's like the Pied Piper. They'd follow him around until he just decided. And whichever bar he went to, the bar owner thought, that's me made for the rest of the night now. This place is going to be packed. And he's the best I've ever seen. Absolute best I've ever seen.
Is he still around?
No. I think he passed about 15 years ago.
Did he write any books? Are there any books on?
No,
really?
That you literally had to get to know him, and it took me about 6 months of going back, you know, from the UK to sit with him.
That would be a great documentary.
Yeah.
There was enough information on him.
After 6 months, it was like he'd share little bits and pieces of his meanings for the cards, and it's kind of underpinned a lot of what I do just now. But yeah, he was the best by a long shot. That, you know, if in a standard tarot reading, if somebody was selecting 10 cards, he'd get to 3 cards. I can't do it in French, but they get to 3 cards. You go, enough. I know all about you. Boom, boom, boom. 3 cards, and he would just spend half an hour based on 3 cards describing this person's life in absolute detail.
So do you have to have intuition for that, or is he?
Yeah. I mean, when I teach, I always say to people, you know, there is a magic with the tarot. Tarot will work itself on some level, and there's good psychological reasons why the tarot works. There's also the kind of how is that working? with cards, because there's something about them. But if you work with tarot long enough, you will by nature develop intuitive abilities. It's like going to the gym. If you lift weights long enough, you're going to build muscle. If you read tarot cards, you're going to build your intuition. The two things go hand in hand. But where I think a lot of tarot readers go wrong, they entirely rely. They don't put the groundwork in learning what the cards actually mean. They rely purely on, when I look at a card, something will pop into my mind, which is great if you do one reading a month. But if you're doing 8 or 9 or 10 a day, you have to have the underpinning of actually understanding what the cards mean and be able to interpret them properly.
So hold on one sec, Mike. So
it's the Eric show.
I'm sorry, I have a lot of questions.
I have a million questions too.
Write them down. Do you think that there's an awakening happening, or do you think that, is it the age of Aquarius, or is it just high-speed internet?
Good question. Because I'm old enough. I've been through, obviously not the last 18 months. No one's been through the last 18 months with COVID, etc. But I've been through it enough times, probably 2 or 3 times, where there's been a resurgence in interest. So yes, to an extent. I genuinely thought at the beginning of 2020, when the shit hit the fan with COVID, etc., this is going to be awakening. People are going to suddenly start realizing there's more to life than what they were doing before. This is going to shake people up.
Right.
And I've kind of gone to that point, and I think for a group of people, possibly a significant group of people, that has been the case of they don't want to go back to life they were before. But I'll be honest, kind of having gone through and read for a lot of people, it's kind of gone. I think people just want their normality back to get it. So I think for spiritual people, it has been a major awakening. I think for the majority of the public, no, they just want their holidays back, and they just want to be able to travel. And it's just they want to. Yeah, my personal belief, I don't think it's been as much of an awakening as I was hoping it was going to be. But that's human nature, isn't it? People just like security and like stability. But I think certainly from the classes point of view, masterclasses and the academies I teach, I mean, for the people that are open spiritually, wanting to find, there's been a huge wave of interest going there. But that search for answers, I think for the majority of the public, maybe I'm just jaded. Maybe it's different than UK. I don't know. UK.
There's been a huge awakening, I think, in the States for spirituality. Eric and I are kind of leading that charge. We want people to know that, like, this whole birth to death thing, like, was cool for a little bit, but like there's something so much bigger. So we lost our father, and he came through the reading with you and everything, and it was mind-blowing. In another session we had with another medium, and I kind of want to just jump back to tarot real quick. He told me that, magic is real, archangels are real, the Kabbalah is real. And I'm not getting all religious here. Like, we're not religious people, we're spiritual people. And then I started researching about the Kabbalah. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. And there's a huge component of tarot in the Kabbalah. Do you correlate the two? Because I know that when we were talking, nothing was about Kabbalah and archangels. It was more about tarot.
It's been the Kabbalah has been brought in to the tarot. I mean, the tarot has a much less interesting history than people would like to believe it has.
Right.
It's an Italian card game from the 15th century. That's kind of where the tarot cards come from. But I don't think I'm not one of these people that will just layer mysticism. I kind of like to know exactly what it is that I'm working with, etc.
Right.
But the cards have been designed in a very, very clever way, very insightful way. But they were a card game. You can still go to Italy and buy and play the game. Tarocchi, it's still around. And then about late 19th century, beginning 20th century. You're getting a lecture here now. You're on.
I want to hear this. Like,
this is what it's all about.
But there were a few people. It went from Italy to France. The deck, and there's a few people who picked it up and started using it for what we would call fortune telling. No, but it wasn't used as prior to that. It wasn't. It was just a card deck that was created for the very rich nobility back in Italy. So it was around for 400 years before it ever became a fortune telling tool. And they kind of, to make it a little bit more interesting, the history of it, things were built into it. The Kabbalah was connected to it. And I'm not taking anything away, because if it adds a depth to the interpretation of the cards, then that's great. I mean, the most popular deck that most people are familiar with, so I've got tarot decks everywhere in my office. The Rider-Waite deck, which is the one that
you have that behind you, Eric. You have the Eric. You have the Golden Dawn deck. Is that it?
Yeah. Rider-Waite. Yeah, it's the Rider-Waite's pretty much become the basic template for most modern tarot decks.
Right.
And when that was designed, they basically chucked everything, including the kitchen sink, mysticism-wise, at that deck to make it look appealing and make it. I'll be honest, I'm not a great fan of that deck, but it's the one that's most commercially available. It's the one I use it to teach with, because most people are familiar with it.
So, go ahead.
So it's probably in the last 150 years that most of the mysticism has been added to tarot deck. I prefer to think of it as it originally was. I mean, it's been a very cleverly designed deck. I describe the tarot deck as containing every human life story from beginning of time to the end of time within the pages of it. And people go, yeah, but then you do the statistics and you work out, if you're doing a 10-card reading, Celtic cross, which is anybody who does the tarot will know the Celtic cross, because it's the one that's taught in all the books. There's something like 4 quintillion possible ways of laying out 10 cards from a 78 card deck. So when you say it does have every human life story in it, yeah, it does, because
it's the hero's journey. That's what I've been learning and reading, is that, like, the fool. I write screenplays, I write books, and we spoke about this, but like the hero's journey is a fool starting his journey, and then meeting the magician, meeting the high priestess, and learning from them, and then coming back around the other way, a changed person. That's what the tarot journey is. Am I right?
The 22 major arcana, absolutely. Yeah, it's a story through life. It does have so the variations in the deck are almost limitless. You're never going to get to the end of them. At least.
Have you ever had the same 2?
No, never had the same 10 cards out.
Never had the same, and all the times you've read, there's never been the same.
Yeah, and I think I've got 80. Last count, a journalist worked out, I must have read for over 82,000 people. So far, no. You'll see the weirdest thing, and this is what I said before. There's something about the tarot deck and how it works, which is weird, because occasionally, if I'm reading for members of the same family, out of 10 cards or 15 cards, whatever I'm reading, half of them will come up the same. So I can't go, you must be connected to that person. You must be connected to that person. That's no coincidence there. So that's the bit of the tarot that I can't explain, and no one can explain how the hell that happens. But it is there's a whole section of and when I teach it, there's a point where I kind of go, right, I can't explain this bit, but I'm going to show you something.
Wow.
And no matter what section of the tarot deck I will use, it keeps coming up with the same message in the same reading. Again and again. I've been teaching it tarot for years now, and I do it every time, and it's never failed me yet. And I'm thinking, I can't explain that. It just does it.
Really?
So it's just to explain. It's just to show people there is a point in the deck. Trust the cards. They know what they're doing. It's one of the ways I teach tarot reading to people is just get out of the way and let them do what they're meant to do. Don't complicate it.
You said to me during our reading, you said that I had a lot of similar, not the same cards, but similar cards, as I don't want to mention names if we're allowed to or not allowed to, but one of the top. No, I'm not. One of the top writers. Top writers in the world. And you were like, I read for this person.
I did, yeah, up in Edinburgh. Yeah.
And do you remember what my cards were? I don't want to make the show about me.
It's one of those strange things. It's like mediumship readings. Generally speaking, as soon as it's out.
Yeah, you can't retain all of that.
Even I could bump into the person I'm reading for half an hour later, and I wouldn't know them. It doesn't stay. Nothing stays.
Really? I guess it can't, right? Like it would drive you nuts.
So you're just like a pass through.
Yeah, it's not coming from me. So I mean, the cards may be slightly differently, but certainly mediumship is not coming from me. It's coming through me. So it's like, if I'm doing events, there's kind of 100, 200 people there, and somebody comes up at the end going, "Oh, that was great. When you said this, I won't remember I talked to them, and B, I will know a clue what, even if it was just 20 minutes ago. I will not. I couldn't pick them up my line out the people I've talked to.
Really? I was going to ask, how has tarot affected you? So is giving all these readings affected your life? at all?
Yeah, I mean, the honest answer is because I've done nothing but. I am now so right-brained. I live in that intuitive, creative side of the brain that I barely can function left. I have to have it. Fortunately, I've got assistants around me who will do all that sort of stuff there, because I just cannot. To switch back really is, it's when I have to do the accounts and the taxes and that sort of stuff, I've got to go do it because I don't understand it. Yeah, I cannot. I can barely add a column of numbers up and get it right. My brain just will not switch back into that area. So
Really?
56 years of just constantly being in right brain means, that
So
critical
you're
brain.
you're dialed in all the time, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I can force myself out of it for brief periods of time when I have to. Like at the beginning of COVID, I suddenly had to learn all the technology to be able to do this and the lighting and all the software. So I can do it if I have to, but I can't stay there very long. It just
Did take us back to 2018, 2019. Did you see the calamity that 2020 was? Were there cards that were coming out going, there's something weird here?
There was two things. First thing was, and it's weird because obviously never seen it in all the years before, is everybody's cards started looking, everybody's readings started sounding the same. It's like, I remember saying to so many clients, it's like somebody's just pressed the pause button on your life. Nothing's happening. Almost every reading, and it became more and more and more. And to the point I was questioning myself, am I doing this wrong after all these years? Why is nothing happening? And it was like the pause button had been hit. And then the closer to the end of 2019 into 2020, the kind of January, then there was things picking up going, this is not nice. Whatever this is not nice. I didn't know it was a virus because I'd got nothing to compare it against. Nobody had ever seen a virus on the scale on tarot cards. So thinking this is not good, whatever this is.
Right.
But it was the similarity between every reading, which kind of once we're in the middle of lockdown, thinking, oh, that makes sense. Everybody's doing pretty much the same thing. Everybody's stuck in their house and can't do anything and watching Netflix or whatever.
Right.
So it made sense, but it was weird because obviously I'd never ever seen it before.
I wanted to shift gears a little bit. You teach classes on, or you give sessions on past lives?
Yeah. I used to do past lives. My background is also as a hypnotherapist. I've been all over the place.
You do it all. You do it all, Richard.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got degrees. I've got masters in psychology, etc., etc. Mainly, I do it all, but everything's been in quite a narrow path. It's all to do with kind of mind understanding and But so I used to do past life sessions. I still do the occasional one now. But yeah, I train and teach people to both deliver past life sessions, even using tarot cards to access past lives. I create meditations for it. I've just done one this morning.
Really?
For a lot of guided imagery work. Because I've done nothing else, I have a fairly specific path that I've gone through myself, and it's not all myself. I've worked with parapsychologists over the years, so I've got a fairly narrow path that kind of just works for people wanting to develop psychically and wanting to experience stuff. The biggest problem in this area is there's so many new bright and shiny things that people kind of go running after.
Mm-hmm.
I want to learn that, and maybe I'm just bossy. I kind of go, do you want to learn to develop or not? In that case, don't run after the next bright and shiny thing. There is a defined path to do it, which sort of I developed or I've helped to develop, and I do the same with tarot. You want to learn to do tarot? This is how you do it.
Can anyone learn tarot in your masterclass? Anyone?
My masterclass, the masterclasses in the academies, there are people that would absolutely tell you they're not psychic. I mean, they'll now go, I'm much more intuitive, but they just wanted to learn about the tarot and how to learn to read the tarot cards. And I teach the system that I use. I wouldn't be able to teach a system anybody else's system. So I teach and it seems to gel for most people. They can actually learn and pick up a deck of tarot cards and be able to deliver good readings, relatively quickly doing it. Last weekend, I was with somebody who knew vaguely about tarot, and within about 4 hours, I had a reading 3 card combinations really, really well for people. So it's a skill. Reading tarot cards is a skill. From that, we'll branch out intuition, which is the next layer. You know, you learn the meanings of the cards. You learn how to make the meanings flow. You trust in the cards that they're actually going to connect to somebody. And then the next layer is that intuitive layer, which will come. I spend a lot of time teaching, also how to connect with intuition, exercises just to quieten down that critical chattering monkey brain, so you can actually connect to intuition. And that's the next level. You know, that's really where the tarot reading will jump with that, and it can all be learned. Everybody's intuitive.
Can you use tarot for yourself? Is it for yourself, or it's always for someone else?
Oh, generally always for somebody else, simply because it's like any form of psychic reading. It's very difficult to do it for yourself or anybody you know really well, anybody you've got an emotional investment in, like family, because you can't be objective.
Right.
You know, because it's an interpretive thing, you're never wanting to see something bad for somebody. I mean, there's 2 reasons why I won't do it. One is I don't want to see anything bad, but in several cases where I've broken my rule, I've also discovered things about people that I know that I wish I didn't know.
Really?
Yeah. And like, once it's there, it's there. It's like learning somebody's secrets. And, you know, if anybody asks me who is a friend or too close, that's the reason I'll give them. I might find out things about you don't want me to know. Now,
Really?
that usually makes them back off quite quickly.
Can you give us an example of something that you read with someone that you weren't supposed to know?
Yeah. They're running through a list of things I can share that's not going to get me into trouble.
Use aliases.
A while ago, but I was reading for somebody, and they pushed, and it was going to be a fun thing at a party. And I think I'd probably had a bit to drink to agree to do it, and I put the cards out and discovered very quickly that this person's entire history had been invented by themselves. They completely created an entire backstory that wasn't real. I mean, literally everything we knew about them and this group of friends knew about them was complete rubbish. Their childhood they talked about wasn't the childhood. They completely reinvented it.
They were frauds.
And so tarot is it your intuition that's figuring it out, or is it literally the cards?
The cards will do it themselves. The thing with the cards, I mean, there's a good psychological reason why the cards will work. You know, to take it away completely to do with mysticism, there's a very strong reason why the cards will work, because it just plugs into experiences we all go through as human beings. I spend quite a lot of my time now working with companies or CEOs who may have a question about something, not necessarily about themselves, but a product, and the cards will give them different ways of looking at things. It's called conceptual blending. So there's a scientific reason why cards will work, to give you different ways of viewing a situation that you may not have considered before. It's almost a creative exercise. And that's very useful when you're working with an individual who's stuck in a situation, to kind of, you know, they can't see a way forward or something, or they're thinking about starting a business and they can't see what they should do. You know, if you're reading the cards properly, you can give them other ideas or other ways of other viewpoints that, that might just spark off something in their head. But yeah, I mean, this, as I teach this 3 layers, there's the cards psychologically working, which is also why it's an extremely good coaching tool. Most of the people that I train now are probably heading towards using it in the arena of coaching, whether it's spiritual coaching or life coaching, because it's probably the best tool out there just to get.
People need that.
Yeah.
Hold on one sec. Is it dangerous to rely on the cards too much?
Right. Okay, that's a different question. I think it's dangerous to rely on anything external to yourself. I think it's dangerous to rely on Google to give you answers to anything. So it's the same question. Yeah. And actually, it's when the academies I set up, I probably preach this too much. People are probably sick of it, but I preach really strongly the ethics behind it. I mean, my whole approach has been to try and move the tarot away from the fortune teller.
Yes.
Towards this is I could tell you names of people, extremely well-known CEOs, biggest CEOs in the world, who consult tarot consultants.
Wow, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I mean,
that's what John D.
People have been doing it for all time, right? Like kings and queens. John D was had magicians.
Yes, John D was the necromancer for Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's been yeah.
Spiritual advisors. We should
Yeah.
get that, Eric. We should have a spiritual advisor for our company. I mean, we kind of do, right?
I mean,
Like,
I mean, we have a lot of contacts in that world
Yeah.
now. But
Yeah. But yeah,
so for
moving it-
business people, it's interesting for me because I love, I'm big on LinkedIn, and I would love to make a clip for LinkedIn regarding business and tarot, and how can tarot help a business person?
I mean, there's probably about 30% of my clients that I work with now, CEOs, whatever, that would not let me in the office or the building as a psychic. But
Right.
but because I'm using the tarot to help them come up with creative decisions or creative thought processes, or give them an insight into a situation, it's fine. It's just I'm a creative consultant who happens to use the tarot. Most of them are usually really interested in the psychic side as well. But so yeah, and the tarot's shifted and changed a lot in the last 15 years, and it's one of the reasons I do what I do now, and it was the primary reason behind setting up academies for it. Is like, I want to move this from the fortune teller to
You're doing it.
the point where you can walk in, where you're consulting with CEOs of companies. I mean,
there is a stigma. There is a
Yeah.
stigma to the tarot that, like, when again you're in that hotel and they're pulling these cards, going, your career is changing. It's like, dude, like, why did I pay $20 for this?
And the fact is, the vast majority of tarot readers out there are not very good.
Right.
Because it's one of those tools you could pick up and you can sort of read the tiny little book that comes with it, which is rubbish. Don't get me going. I'll make myself very unpopular with the entire tarot.
Are you you have to write a book, Richard? I'm looking on you on Amazon. Do you have a book?
Not, all my books, the books I've written are all pulled into the academy now. The only way I want to share information now is there's going to be an autobiography that coming out next year.
Great.
But all the tarot stuff is in the academy now, simply because about a year before COVID and lockdown, I was going to write a book, but I was looking at tarot books, and it's not a great way of teaching tarot. You've got to see it. You've got to see somebody else do it and follow their thought process as well. So the academies and the masterclasses were kind of on the back burner before the world shut down. I thought, okay, this is a sign from above. This is the time to do it. And it works so far. It's so much. But I'm going to. A lot of people won't like this, but I genuinely don't think you can learn to read tarot well from a book.
Really?
And most books are not. This is why I don't have very many friends in the industry. Most tarot books have not been written by tarot readers who have done thousands of readings.
Right. I bought tarot books, Richard, on Amazon. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about.
Nope.
I didn't get it. I was on your masterclass. I'm like, oh, this is easy.
It is. It's easy. It's not complicated.
No, it's not. And the books make it hard.
Oh yeah. And it's also full of the dragon, the mysticism, the background stuff that it's fascinating to read, but it won't actually make you a good tarot reader. And the whole point of doing what I do and teaching what I teach is, let's make you a good tarot reader. And then if you want to take it further and build up a practice and do this professionally, this is the way you do it professionally. This is how you do it professionally. This is the ethics of it. And we pull in marketing experts that normally, a tarot reader or somebody building a psychic practice would never get access to. And this is how you do the marketing of it properly on Facebook and do it ethically, etc., etc.
I just want to say one thing. Back when you read me, and this, when I tell people, I'm like, you got to get a Richard Knight reading, because there's life before Richard and then there's life after Richard. A reading.
Can I interrupt just slightly there? They're going to struggle at the moment, because the one thing I've put on hold now is doing private session work. It might happen again next year, but so many projects on the go, something had to
I get it. No, I get it.
You did something that was mind-blowing.
You drew a picture of my father. I don't know if you remember that.
I do, actually, because I don't normally do automatic writing every session, but I cannot draw to save myself. It's the essence of my father. It's a comic book drawing.
Yeah, this is who our father. Let me put it up there.
Okay.
So you literally drew our father. Wow. So automatic writing.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, go ahead.
When during that reading, you're like, he's right over here, and he's like, draw me.
Yeah.
Is that automatic writing, or is that like,
yeah,
how does that work?
As I set up just now here, is the pad will have been below my right hand. So when I'm talking to people, that hand is constantly scribbling on this pad of paper. And I can remember the session because I remember I'm not writing, my hand's doing something else here. And it was, and there are times in session I'm going, oh, okay, this is weird now. I'm drawing something. But the thing is, I cannot look at it until it's finished, because if I look at it, that critical brain's going to kick in going, oh my God, you're drawing something. And it'll completely kick me out of intuitive flow. So I'm talking and the hand will be drawing. And until I know it's done, I have no idea what I've just drawn. And I have no idea how it relates or what it relates.
Really?
Yeah. Most of automatic writing, I will not
So
be
let's
aware
talk.
of.
Yeah, let's talk automatic writing. We're friendly. We've interviewed twice a gentleman by the name of Michael Sandler.
Yep.
Have you ever been on a show before?
No.
We got to introduce you.
Inspire Nation.
Inspire Nation. Absolutely unbelievable. He wrote a book, Automatic Writing.
Right. The automatic writing experience.
Explain that. Can anybody do automatic writing?
Yeah. Can anybody? That's a question. Yes.
Anybody that wants to.
So. I mean, there's always going to be a small percentage of people that, for whatever reason, are completely blocked from doing it. Or the biggest hurdle, I think, for automatic writing is people freaking themselves out.
Right. What is automatic writing?
I talk about a lot between right and left brain, and the moment your critical mind's grabbed onto what you're doing intuitively, it's out the window. There's a great technique that I wish was mine, but it's not. But I teach that there's between something coming through intuitively and your critical brain grabbing it and trying to make sense of it, there's a 3-second window, and you have to work within that 3-second window. It was used a lot when they were training people for remote viewing, that 3-second window. And it's kind of key to a lot of the stuff that I do is like, whatever's coming through, write it down, whatever, fast. Do not involve critical mind, because and that's where most people stumble with automatic writing. Something will start coming through, and it takes a lot of self-discipline not to kind of start looking at what your hand's writing. And as soon as you do, your brain's kind of going, oh, that looks a bit like an A, or it could be an S, and you're out of it. So that's the biggest hurdle most people
So
have.
what can automatic writing be used for? So are you getting that from spirit, or is
two sources? One is purely your own intuition finding a way of expressing itself. It's a bit like if you ever used a pendulum. It's the same thing. The pendulum is just basically an external. There you go.
This shit is so accurate.
I know.
I did pendulum last year during COVID. I'm like, is my son gonna have a bar mitzvah? And like this thing was going like this, and like I wasn't even trying to do it. Right.
Pendulum's an amazing tool. I always have a pendulum with me. I always carried for about 30 years ago. I always had a pendulum with me.
Oh my God, I love it.
But I mean, what pendulum is a way of your intuition externally demonstrating what it. Yeah. So it's. I mean, I would say a pendulum by itself, depending on what it's made of, I guess. But pendulum itself is a tool. It just it's a way of your intuition demonstrating what it wants you to know. And on one level, automatic writing can be that. It's a bit more advanced, but that can be your intuition expressing itself there. But also the other part of automatic writing is when spirit will come through, and there's a qualitative difference. You can tell the difference between your intuition doing it and spirit doing it. You're aware there's some other energy there who is now in control. Is a bit of an exaggeration, but the information's coming through from an external source to yourself. But automatic writing can be, for me, it's one of those things, probably when I retire, I'll develop it more, because for me, everything has to be very functional, because this is what I do for a living. This is what I've always done for a living. So it's like trying to get accurate information through to somebody, the client, almost as fast as possible and reliably. I would love to be able to sit down and use automatic writing to write a book or to write poetry there. But for me, an automatic writing session I can fill 2 sides of A4 up, but it'll be names, it'll be whatever.
So do you think automatic writing is the greatest artists of all time, or musicians, the writers? Is it
100%?
Sometimes, even if you're creative in business, sometimes things just come into your head and you're like, where did that come from? Is that Mozart? Is that
exactly? And Tesla was the same. Said, yeah, it was already there. Basically, I'm paraphrasing very clumsily. It was already there. Yeah, I just channeled it through, and
so? Everybody in
yeah,
some sense does automatic
yeah, it's there.
writing.
It's there. You're just accessing it. You're
I will jump in here real quick. When I write, it like my mind goes blank, and the stuff that's coming out of my fingers onto the keyboard, I'm not thinking of this when it's happening. It's just happening. You're pulling it from somewhere else. This is not you thinking, oh, he's going to say yes, he's going to say no. There's something bigger at play here when you're doing something creatively. I could say that for myself.
It's that idea of the Akashic records or infinite intelligence or whatever. Yeah, that it's already there. I absolutely believe that there's a universal store of intelligence that we can tap into. Without exception, I think every songwriter or writer that I've met has all said that. There've been points where it just flows without any effort.
It's amazing.
What we're on to celebrity now. Besides me, what other celebrities have you? Because I'm not there yet. I have to say I'm gonna get there, but I don't know if you can divulge.
No, it's one of those things. I tell you, my way of approaching it is, I would never talk about somebody who lives 2 streets away in their reading. So I kind of have that same rule for everybody.
Okay. But you've read for celebrities who weren't celebrities and then became celebrities.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, he probably read for people that weren't successful in business or didn't have a family and then have a family and were successful in business. I mean, it's you're projecting what you want, Mike, but everyone's always projecting whatever they would want in life, right?
Yeah, but I think that's part, with as a tarot reader, you kind of got to be truthful. Somebody's people have got these expectations of what they want the cards to say, and sometimes you got to go, sorry, that's not what's going to happen. You have a plan B. You got to, because that's life, isn't it? So I don't think as a tarot reader you'd get very far if you just told people what they wanted to hear all the time, because like they'd be back 2 years time going, well, that never happened. Where's my big mansion?
Right.
So you've got to you tell them what's on the cards, basically. What are you actually seeing? And at times when you're doing it, thinking, you're not going to like this. This is not what your dream was about. But and I do occasionally finish readings kind of when somebody's been told something they didn't really want to hear. I'm kind of going, I hope I'm wrong, because I hope I'm wrong, and you get what you really want there. But I can only tell you what I'm saying.
That's got to be such a bummer.
It doesn't have, but again, it's that you've got to be honest and say what you're actually looking at on the cards. Then I mean, it goes back to what I said before. There's so many not very good tarot readers out there who will just who will either run out of things to say and start making shit up, basically, or they're doing what feels like a very boring reading, thinking I better make this a bit more dramatic, and they'll start bringing in, oh, you're going to lottery next year.
Have you done that? Oh, 1 second about the lottery, Eric. Have you said? I mean, you told me stuff which I'm hoping is going to come true in the next 2 to 3 years. But like, have you said to someone you're going to hit the lottery? Like,
actually, the only time that's ever happened in the UK, it must be over 20 years ago now, when the lottery just started. I read for 3 people in the first 6 months, and it's a bit like COVID, because the lottery had never existed in any shape or form in the UK. Prior to that, I didn't know what I was looking at. It was just like there's 3 people thinking, there's a lot of money coming into your life. Things are going to change, and there's like £200,000, £300,000, whatever. I mean, I never read for somebody who won 10 million, but I didn't know what it was. I just said there's a lot, because I didn't know what the lottery should look like on tarot cards. It just after the 3rd time, I did promise myself the next time I saw that set of cards, I'd just be very casually asking them what numbers they played, because I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be playing their numbers on Saturday as well.
But that's where the skeptics come in, right? That's when you have people like Penn and Teller who come and go, well, if they're psychic and if they can read the future, why can't they just predict the lottery numbers? And me personally, like, I don't believe in lottery. Like, you make your own lottery.
There's a very easy answer to that one that they don't like hearing, because I've been friends with a lot of skeptics over the years. They don't like hearing this, going, yeah, but you do a reading on a person. Although I was joking, the next time I see that on the cards, I'll be asking what the lottery numbers are. You'd have to be reading for somebody who's going to win the lottery. Right, you can't, because that's the connection to the person. You can't just pluck out 6 numbers from midair. Where's that going to come from?
Right.
So the next time I am reading for somebody who wins the lottery, great, I'll go, right, what are the lottery numbers? There you go. That's the only way you can do it. It's just you have to have that. You have to have that connection. Like when people say, who's going to win a football game? Well, I don't know unless the client sat in front of me is actually playing in that game or very closely connected to somebody who's playing in that game. Then there's a connection to the event. If there's no connection to the event, then what am I gonna see?
So if someone's making a bet on a game,
if they're winning money, yeah, I mean, if it's the same thing. If somebody suddenly won quite a lot of money, it almost looked like the lottery.
that's
But
interesting.
it wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily know what team it was. I mean, I have blind spots as a.
You could probably explain this, Richard, because we've had on multiple mediums on the show, and we go to mediums often. We go to psychics, and we kind of weed out the ones who we kind of know that are BS and the ones who are actually real. I have some psychic ability. I can't explain it, but my entire life I have dreams, and I'm talking about when I'm sleeping in my bed and I go to sleep and I'm dreaming of the future. And sometimes it's interpretive. Sometimes it's like, muddled. But for argument's sake, we had this recorded. Tampa Bay. I'm a huge Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. I've been following them for 25 years. And I saw last year, right before about 2-3 weeks, I recorded. I said, Eric, Tampa Bay is going to win the Super Bowl. I had a dream. I was sleeping and I saw Tom Brady winning a Super Bowl. I said, could be this year, could be next year, but they are going to win a Super Bowl and it's going to be in their home stadium. And they won. Is that cognitive? I can't do that when I'm awake. I can't look at you and say, no, you have this and that. I can only do it when I'm sleeping.
I mean, the fact is, because when you're sleeping, your intuition's got a free run. So your intuition is accessing that information.
Right.
So for a lot of people, when they have psychic experiences, it often is when they're asleep, because basically the critical brain's not getting in the way. Then there's nothing getting in the way of your intuition when you're asleep going, oh, that can't be right. It just flows. So that's why most time when you're developing psychically, you're doing it through a form of meditation. Meditation is such a big, there's two keys to developing psychically. One is meditation, a good meditation practice, and the second one is journaling. Any expert on psychic development will tell you those are the two building blocks.
Really?
So meditation / sleeping, we're in that same ballpark. I mean, a lot of my work has been getting people to access theta state, brainwave state, because that is a sweet spot for it. And I wish it was my discovery. It wasn't. It was the discovery of a parapsychologist I worked with when I was 15, 16 years old in the laboratory, who needed me to work reliably every Saturday morning, and which at the age of 15, I could barely get my backside out of bed on that Saturday morning. So they put together this meditation thing that would get me working up and running very quickly. And it was theta state. And a lot of the work I do now has been built on that. I run events, what's called reunion, which is mediumship, but also my approach to a lot of skeptics is kind of going, I can argue, I mean, I've spent a lifetime doing this. You can argue with real hardened skeptics to blue in the face. You're blue in the face. You're never going to change that opinion. And, people like James Randi. James Randi was a friend of mine. I've spent loads of time with James.
Really? You knew James Randi?
Yeah, I knew James Randi. Yeah.
How you guys are like oil and water.
Yeah,
you couldn't convert him?
No. I mean, I met him when I was 15 years old. Yeah, I mean, 16 years old down in London, and because it was friend, and it was the case of like, I've got loads of people. Even Teller.
Has he gotten in touch with you?
Hold on, you know Teller too?
I've met him a couple of times. Yeah, and it's like it's fine. I mean, you kind of go right. I don't agree with anything you say. I don't understand what you do. I go, that's fine. Should we have a drink and have a chat about something else? Fine. I mean, Randy off and on. We chat, we'd email, etc. It's like it's a lot of it is kind of media built, isn't it? A lot of it is media built, and Randy was the consummate showman and PR. I mean, Uri Geller is a good friend of mine as well. And
my God,
those two, but behind the scenes, there was a symbiotic relationship, the two of them. So Yeah.
So is it keeping your friends closer but your enemies closer?
No, really, they're never really enemies. I mean, it's like we could shake hands and kind of go, yeah, and at the end of a drink, it's fine.
But like
that's good though.
They couldn't explain everything that you're doing.
No.
They
No,
can't.
No, that's what skeptics will kind of go. You can argue blue in the face. They will find the most weird and convoluted explanations. I mean, I've had, when I've been doing events, not like Sir Randy said, but where I had a journalist, this is about 25 years ago, absolutely convinced I had a team of private detectives who had researched everybody in an audience of 200 people, until I sat him down going, work out the maths on that. And, I wasn't making that much money about it. I'd bust within 2 weeks if I'd employ like 20 private detectives to research this lot. And then when he looked at it, there was no way of finding out about them or who they were coming along anyway, and who's coming along. So, but they will come out with really convoluted explanations of which are funny. I mean, it's when you've been doing this for your entire life and you've been off and on TV and you meet skeptics all the time, and a lot of them are really nice. I've no problem. I respect their opinions.
The funniest dynamic. Actually,
a lot of them may not respect what we do, but they're fine. They'll have intelligent conversations.
I want to say the funniest dynamic. Our mother's a medium, and my uncle Kevin he's blind.
He's birthed to death,
and he's birthed to death, and you can see why he is that way, because how is there a God if they took his vision, right? But he's with my mother all day because they work together. They work in our family business and in our family car service, and he's our CFO. We call him Rain Man. He's amazing at numbers. And my mom will do a reading, and he'll hear this person on the other end of the phone or the Zoom with their mind blown, and my mother has never met this person. They're from the UK or they're from Australia or wherever it is.
And our mom's not researching them on Facebook, right?
Like, she's
these are ungoogleable things that she's
she's reading them, and then I'll go to Kevin. I'm like, explain that, and he's like, I can't.
And he's a staunch skeptic.
I can't.
Yeah. I'm married to an engineer and a scientist, and like we can't have a conversation about what I do because she goes, I know it works, but it shouldn't work, so we don't talk about it. So there's a dividing line, two complete sides of the line. Have
you been tested scientifically? There was a show on HBO. It was 20 years ago called Life After Life, and George Anderson was on it, Suzanne Northrop, and I have the book, The Afterlife Experiments. I tell this to skeptics, saying, if you don't believe me, I believe in this stuff. This is my life. If you don't believe me, go read The Afterlife Experiments. They were scientifically tested, double-blind placebo tests and everything, and the mediums were getting at like 98% hit rates.
Yeah.
Have you been scientifically tested?
First time when I was 15, for about just under a year, 2 universities in Scotland and one down in London, and then London for about 6 months when I was 19. First lot in Edinburgh Woods for Mediumship, and they actually created the way that I do certainly stage or platform work, because I work differently than most mediums, because they created it. They kind of said, you've got to do it this way because it rules out that, it rules out this, and it rules out that. And this was long before internet or ways of Googling people came up. I did it off and on through my 20s, and then I kind of got to late 20s and had this kind of a big shift in how I do what I do. And it's the problem with doing studies, particularly mediumship, is the only result you ever get is, okay, they're accessing information. There's no possible way they could know. That's as far as you could get, because they can't go, and information's coming from spirit, because there's no way they can test that, prove that. So you only ever get to that kind of, they're accessing information that there's no way they could know. Kind of, well, that's what we do. The more interesting part from a medium is, and the other 90% of it is the connection to spirit and how they communicate, etc. But that's not scientifically provable because we don't have any way of testing that yet.
I think 80,000+ tarot readings that were all accurate is pretty scientifically tested, Richard, wouldn't you think?
But the interesting thing is, even now, you're only good as the next reading you're going to do. Yeah. It is that, and it keeps you on your toes. You never get 80,000 readings. You never get blasé because you're still climbing the mountain again for the next hour for the next client.
So what's on your roadmap? What's 2021 look like for Richard Knight?
2022.
2022. Sorry.
21's almost over.
Most of my energy now is going into the teaching the masterclasses in the academies. It's something that it's never been done before in this format. So it's literally just testing the waters, and we have well over 1,000 people in the 2 academies now, and I think 10,000 plus people have gone through the masterclasses. And I really enjoy doing them. We've got more we're building through next year. There's autobiography that's going to be written, which is, it's not going to be a typical kind of Hay House autobiography. My way through reading cards has not been that sort of way through. The working title from my autobiography is Tarot from Brothels to Palaces, because I've read for every single place in between.
Oh my
back and
God.
forth there. So
have you read for the Queen?
You've
read for royalty? I'm sorry for interrupting. Yeah. You've read for royalty?
Yeah. But
you're like a modern day John Dee.
I've been weirdly. You mentioned John Dee because I'm down in London 2 weeks time, and in the British Museum there's a display of all his stuff. And I hadn't seen it for years, but because I'm creating something new next year, I need to go back and see. There's a scrying mirror that's sitting there, and I take a picture of it.
100%. I am obsessed with that stuff. I love that stuff.
What I love about all that is that it's everything is hidden in plain sight. Once you start realizing what it is, it's everywhere. It's in movies, it's in artwork, it's in, and that's what's so phenomenal, that people have been using it for all time.
Led Zeppelin, my second favorite band of all time, Led Zeppelin, and Tool, right? My favorite band of all time. The Zeppelins, I think it's Stairway to Heaven. The album, the cover is the Hermit.
Yeah, tarot symbology is
everywhere.
Being used ever. It's they're archetypes. So they were even in, if you once you're tuned into it. And I always warn people that once they learn tarot, said you're going to see it everywhere. You walk down the street and you will see those images being used in posters, even in railings. You can see how it's been used, and it is everywhere.
I love what you're doing, Richard. You're bringing the tarot to the masses.
Yeah, and I see why you had to give up on. I don't want to say give up, but scale back your private readings, because you can help a lot more people by training more people to do what you do.
That's the point. I mean, that's really because I'm slowly heading towards semi-retirement, I guess.
Man.
So, but the idea of actually creating, really professional, really ethical tarot readers who know what they're doing, all over the world, because people in the academies and masterclasses are literally every corner of the world. That kind of it's a pompous word to say legacy, isn't it? But it's kind of, and also because I've done nothing else for 40 years, in every conceivable type of place in the world, for every conceivable sort of person that you can imagine. And I thought, it's something I can use to, and it's all about lifting the tarot image away from where it's been for the last 50, 60 years.
Quick question before we wrap up. Do we have a death date? Do we know when we're going to die and move on?
Nope. Any tarot reader or any reader tells you that, put your hand on your wallet and run in the other direction as fast
really?
Because it's cool. Yeah. There's so many things that I make my blood run cold when I've heard tarot readers tell people. There's been points in my life where probably half the readings that I've had to do have been unpicking something some stupid tarot readers told somebody and panic them. They'll be pregnant 3 times, but they're only going to have 2 children, and now they're pregnant with a 3rd child, and they're absolutely sure they're going to lose it. And you kind of got to go back and unpick previous tarot readers. Either they just made it up and they're useless, or they were looking at the cards completely differently. You've got to be so ethically aware of the impact of what you're doing as any form of reader. And I think too many people ignore that fact, that you can have a huge impact going for years if you say the wrong thing and you scare somebody. So no, have I ever read on somebody's cards a death date? No. And I've never seen anybody. I've never ever talked to a pro tarot reader or pro psychic who's been doing it and would even look at it, would even think about it. I mean, it's one of those things. Why would you ever want to know? And I can't see any way you'd find out. Palm readers used to talk about it. But again, that's
Is palm reading legit?
It's a great personality character. It's not so good at looking at the future. Thousands of palm readers will have a fit now, but it's a great way of, if I had a choice, because I've read palms in the past, if I had a choice, I'd use tarot because I can get much more specific in terms of timings of things. With palms, you can't. Palm reading alone, you can't get timings as specific. It's a great way of looking at somebody's potential, their character, their personality, using somebody's palm.
And I always ask this to mediums that we interview: the afterlife, in your opinion, or in, I guess, in your fact or in your experiences, what is it like? Are we here and there at the same time?
But one of the concepts that I think is hardest for us to get our head on is the fact there's no time, there's no tomorrow, yesterday. It's all the same, and for most of us, we just cannot possibly understand a world where there wouldn't be 5 minutes time or tomorrow or next year. It just doesn't link. So for me, the reason I'm just being a bit hesitant, because I've never had a situation where spirit's kind of not been there, where it's kind of gone, not here for the next 100 years. I'm living as a cat in Peru. I mean, I've never had somebody not being in, if that makes sense.
Right.
So that the idea of reincarnation being back here again, I don't think it's going to be within our lifetime, if that makes sense. In our 80, 90 years, it can be sometime off there, or potentially, our energy can be in two places at one time. I'm really careful about how I describe afterlife, because the honest answer is no one really knows. And I go the other direction there, because I am quite a skeptical psychic. There,
How so?
George Anderson said the same thing.
Yeah,
George Anderson, he's like, I am 95% sure everything I'm doing is real.
Yeah, it's the fact is, the reason I'm not kind of mainstream New Age community, if that's not a contradiction, right, is because my whole approach has been to kind of going, I don't know how this works. And human nature, as humans, we have this urge to define, explain everything and label everything. So it's got to work by this, and it's got to be different levels we've got to go through to get to. And like, I'm kind of going, I'd rather just kind of go, I can explain the bits I know. There is spirit. I know how to connect them. I know how intuition works. I know the bits I understand, and I know how to use energy. I know the energy centers, etc. But how it all knits together, I don't, and no one knows. And I'd rather just kind of go, I'd rather work within my limitations and not invent things, because it's a very short road between going, well, it has to work this way, and we're going to call it that, and this is the structure around it, and then a religion comes in going, and we'll have it because it's ours now, and then we'll fight wars because you don't think it works that way. It's it's a lot safer just to go, I don't really know how this all works, and I don't think we can know how it works, because we don't have anything to compare it against. That simplest example I always say is, well, think of a world without time. Most of us can.
Are there, before we wrap it up, are there any bad tarot cards? Like when you get a tarot card, and I know like the death card is like, it's like kind of freaky. Are there any, are there any good tarot cards, like the Magician or the High Priestess, the Hermit? The
one thing is, individual tarot cards don't really tell you an awful lot. It's done by combinations of cards and the card spread. I mean, the two things with the probably more important in tarot readings is the layout you put in the cards on, whether it's Celtic cross or whatever. That's actually more important than
why
the individual meaning cards. But it's one of those questions you always get asked by, if they see a death card, going, A, it doesn't mean anything bad, and it also doesn't really, standing alone, it doesn't really tell me very much.
I see.
Not really. No, there's no bad cards. I mean, and also a lot of them, it's been altered and changed because they come up in films. The death card, was used in horror films. So everybody's, there's another film coming up that I did a bit of consultancy work, a bit of it, and until I left, which is coming out at the end of this year, which is going to be using tarot cards probably in a not great way, which is one of the reasons I left. And that's going to make tarot as a spooky, scary tool for 6 months until people forget about the film. So
what movie?
Nightmare Alley.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been remade. So
wow.
It's not gonna. But but yeah, most of the bad rap tarot gets has come from Hollywood films, not
You're a consultant for Hollywood. You do
yeah.
for really?
Well, there's not very many of us knocking around that kind of
Seriously.
who know the film industry and also know weird and strange things like tarot cards and mediumship. Yeah, I've done quite a few of them over the years, but it's always kind of for the last 10, 12 years, it's been trying to get them to portray tarot as like a more positive thing, which is like not really what they want to do. They're taking, the background of tarot is a scary, strange, weird thing.
It's theatrics.
It is, and I get it. It's a strange, weird deck of cards it's easy to use to become scary and yeah, and use them in a scary sense. I get it. I get why they want to do it. It's like sometimes it's like shouting in the wilderness, going, but they can actually be really motivational and really transformative tool. Going, yeah, that doesn't work for the film.
So where can people find you, Richard?
Yeah, the website is www, obviously, richard-knight.co.uk. So the bit of background and the stuff about the classes and the academies on there, but I said at the moment not doing kind of private sessions.
It's a bummer.
Yeah.
You think you'll get back to it? Because like I know that in the next 2-3 years
I'm craving one. So
yeah, in the next 2-3 years for myself.
But probably next year. Yeah. Email me directly and we'll sort something out. Okay. But in terms of it's actually really weird because it's the first time in 40 years that I kind of pulled the plug, and like it's really weird not getting up every morning and doing eight sessions a day, 6 days a week, and it's like detoxing, if that's the right word. I don't know.
Was that born out of the pandemic? You think that things just shifted for you?
It was the fact that it made what's happening now with teaching. I didn't have an excuse not to. I mean, I was doing sessions on Zoom and video calling for quite a few years before the pandemic, so that slotted in really well. But in terms of, I had no excuse not to kind of sit out in the summer house and design academies and masterclasses there. I didn't realize just how fast it was going to build. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize just how much I was going to enjoy it. I was doing them live in workshops for years and years and years and years. But would it work online in the same way? And it's blown my mind. I mean, it's been, huge.
So what classes do you do? You do tarot? Do you do mediumship and
so there's a tarot and the psychic development masterclass, and then there's 2 academies, one on tarot, one on psychic development. There, and there may well be careful, I can't say too much about this, but there may well be a couple of other academies being added next year at some point.
That's incredible.
That's a great.
Were you brought to that? Did tarot say to you, like, you have to start teaching this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I had this probably wait for another day, but I had a massive shift in my late 20s where I kind of walked away from doing all the media psychic stuff and TV programs and everything, and went and sat in a remote cottage for a year to try and work out what exactly this is all about, and then came out really differently with a completely different focus on what I was going to do, and I started to teach at that point in time. So I've been teaching kind of live events in workshops for quite a while. So right. But yeah, and part of it was that sense of I'd seen so many people being taught badly, and scarily badly in some cases, where they were saying very scary stuff to clients. Thinking, right, this is, time to kind of try and make this ethical and professional. Because if it can be seen as ethical and professional, then we deal with the skeptics. We deal with most skeptics don't understand that actually tarot can be a tool that has got nothing to do with the psychic world whatsoever. It can be a very powerful tool within the psychic world, but not necessarily. There's a lot of people who just learn to read tarot and do it very well, who, I said before at the beginning, wouldn't necessarily describe them as psychic.
Finding you was one of the best things to happen to my family. And I can't thank you for, you being there, and
your impact is very real, and it's so appreciated.
Yeah. And
that's lovely to hear. That's lovely to hear. Thank you.
This was amazing. And Eric, it's going to be live in the next few weeks. But
yeah. That'll be live this week.
But everyone, when Richard gets back to reading people, go check his website consistently, because my mind was blown away.
Yeah, no, you guys saw the picture of my dad, and for people who actually know us, who are watching this, Richard is the real deal.
And on top of that, sign up for his masterclass. if you want to take your abilities to the next level, Richard will do that with you. Richard, thank you for coming on. This was
You're
amazing.
more than welcome. It's a real pleasure to see you two again.
Thank you.
Richard.
Hang on 1 second.
Yeah,
We're just
hang
going
out
to
for 2
sign off.
seconds.
All right.
Everybody, please like, subscribe, share this show, and check out richard-knight.co.uk. We appreciate you all tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.